are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte, and really delighted to welcome back to the show data strategist, analytics leader, and co-founder of District Analyst, Germar Reed. He is no stranger to A More Perfect Union. We enjoy having him back here as our special data justice contributor. Germar, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Nee. Glad to be back.
Well, always great to have you here. Look, Germar, let's start with a genuine surprise this week. LAPD, the Los Angeles Police Department, of all departments, they walked away from its contract with Flock Safety, the license plate surveillance company, and their own chief information officer said the reason is, quotes, serious concerns around civil liberties and civil rights issues, particularly around privacy and the data that's being collected from these cameras. When the third largest police force in the country says a surveillance tool is too invasive, what should we make of that?
Yeah, Dr. Nee, I think this goes back to a topic we've discussed a couple of times. I mean, it's data governance. And also, this is an organization that they see the risks associated. They see the lawsuits that will be filed. And also, I mean, this is a collection system that's gathering information all over the city, but not only all over the city, it's syncing with other municipalities and pulling in data so that they could quickly put out information around vehicles, or I think mostly around vehicles. They see the lawsuits that could happen, and this is a matter of the risk department, the risk team, seeing the issues that could come, and they're making a decision that, hey, it's not worth the risk at this moment.
Yeah, they're making a pretty big decision. This is a decision that's on the minds of so many. I was just at an event over the weekend, and there was a candidate for office that was talking about community folks organizing against a local city in the area, renewing their contract or signing a contract with Flock. It's worth noting that Flock may not be doing business with LAPD, but they're doing business with a lot of municipalities out there, a lot of police departments out there. Are we witnessing the surveillance state growing at lightning speed, Germar?
Absolutely, and I think the thing that worries me is it's the human element. I think as I've been paying attention to this topic here, some of the things that stick out, where these cameras are being placed. They're being placed in our communities. They're being placed at a higher rate in our communities, and the data and information they're collecting, that's going into a database. And I think that, they've stated that they keep the data for about 30 days, but have they shared anything with the community that says, hey, we're only keeping this data for 30 days? And we talked about some of the laws in place. I think some of the laws being passed, I think in Illinois, New York. I can't remember the last state that we talked about the last time we had a conversation. It's one thing for them to self-report and say, hey, this is what we're doing with the data. It's another thing for the federal government, the state government, to put rules and perimeters and guardrails in place in order to make sure that it's being done, and then audit that data that's being collected.
I mean, it's so important to note that Fortune reports that LAPD is now renegotiating and not permanently exiting. LAPD is basically reworking its partnership with Flock Safety with enhanced privacy protections less than a week after announcing non-renewal. This is more of a pause, more of a renegotiation than a full break in this relationship. Is that even possible? Is it possible for LAPD to win the kind of enhanced privacy protections that, should assure residents of LA, people visiting LA, that their privacy is being protected according to the law? Should people have confidence in this, or is this just political theater?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think LA being one of the largest cities in the US, they have an extreme amount of power in deciding how this tool and how these systems will collect data, and they will use that data moving forward. They can create parameters that would flow into other municipalities. I think that LA has that power. That's the first point. But the second part is, hey, this, I could see this as PR. It's a matter of, we want to convince you that this is safe, that your data is being handled properly. But I think, I think that there's no way for us to completely be comfortable and confident in this unless we have laws that are passed that ensure that this data is being audited by third parties. And it's not just a one-time audit; it's a regular audit where that data is being exported into a third-party system, that information is being reviewed, and they're being, and not only are they allowed to call out any inconsistencies or data issues, they're also being made to make those corrections. I think that's what will smooth the fears of residents.
Yeah. And really, this data ownership piece is really a part of the heart and soul of this fight. It's worth noting that Flock's own communications chief said that customers can give data access to certain agencies depending on local or state laws. The CDT Policy Council noted that the company has enabled, quotes, side door handshakes for immigration related searches, even without direct ICE contracts, though Flock denies these side door handshakes. And so, this is the thing that is giving people anxiety, right? It's how can they trust that, there isn't going to be some sort of wink, wink, nod, nod deal with the federal government or, some other agency or a third party of ICE. um, you know, personal identifiable information, any sort of data in the wrong hands could actually create harm. I mean, it's worth noting that, according to Futurism, Black residents account for roughly 19.5% of people killed by LAPD, despite being about 9% of the city's population.
Yeah. And that's scary. And I think you added a point that I think it's a very important point. The federal government has shown that that we cannot trust them with our data. This is not the first time that we've seen that, and and in many cases they will go into, I'll use the same word you use, side door. They will use side door access to get the information they need, and then go back and apologize for it later. So that's definitely a place where, hey, there's no trust at all from the citizens. So absolutely made a great point there. Yeah.
Well, it's worth noting that 39 of the 82 total Flock contract terminations nationwide since 2021, they happened in just the first 5 months of this year. A genuine acceleration. And so this story is not just an isolated LA story. This is a national story. We're going to continue to keep our finger on it. But moving along, let's globalize this for a second. France just passed a first in Europe ban on social media for kids under 15. Both chambers of parliament voted in favor, and it's paired with a ban on phones in high schools. Data-wise, is this a model, or is this a mess waiting to happen?
I think it's a little bit of both, and I think for me it'll be interesting to follow what the results of this new ban on, number one, the ban on phones in schools. I think that's something that's been done in the U.S. and in smaller areas, but I think this will be an interesting story to follow with regard to it being a ban across the country. So I'm definitely interested in following this story and seeing what the results of data collected out of this study, or not study, but this ban results in.
Yeah. I mean, when we talk about sort of the rollout mechanics for this, new accounts blocked for under 15-year-olds started September 1st, with existing accounts affected from January 2027. And so we know that this bill, it still needs to sign off from France's Constitutional Council, per the statement we heard from Macron, who said that it's now up to the Constitutional Council to rule on this measure. And so it's not a fully final law, but it really is a move heard around the world. Is it even possible for, you know, the federal government or any local or state government in the United States to pass such a ban?
Yeah, so possibly there's the ability for the pass to occur. I think there'd be a lot of pushback. The thing that I was thinking about is, our children are very intelligent, and as we've seen before, they have the ability to find ways around, some of the enforcement efforts around technology, and in my case, I've seen teenagers find ways to get to the information that they want or access the sites and apps that they want access to. So that'll be interesting to see. But I think it'll be very difficult to launch a national ban. But I'd be interested to see the output of this ban and follow this story.
If you were a fly on the wall in the room, in the war room of some of these tech CEOs in light of this news, what might you hear?
Doc, I think one of the things that we found with regard to marketing, the earlier that you can, get these young eyes on your products, get them connected to your brand. That's always been how do we engage our newest customers as early as possible so that we can, move them along the purchase funnel and make them customers for life. So I would imagine there are conversations that are happening there. And, how do we, as a company, how do we not lose that advantage of being able to cultivate future customers, even in those younger years? Yep.
I mean, Germar, how would you compare or contrast this with Australia's under 16 ban and the US's comparatively toothless federal response? I mean, you know a lot about this sort of data broker economy that keeps kids' data flowing regardless of state laws. What do you make of it?
I think that I think commerce is a strong it's a strong how do I say thinking of ways to make money for companies. They're always going to find ways to look for the edge, and even if there are federal laws and regulations around what data can be accessed or who should be able to access, I think that companies are going to look for a way to access their target market while remaining just inside of the lines of the law. So I think this will be an interesting topic to follow for sure.
When we come forward, we're sticking with tech policy for a little bit longer. Ted Cruz, who chairs the Senate Commerce Committee, is now signaling support for Marsha Blackburn's AI kid safety package, but reportedly told Trump privately that it wouldn't have unified support among Republicans. And so when we come forward, Germar, I want to ask you what the through line is connecting Flock's surveillance fight, France's kid safety law, and this Cruz Blackburn dance on Capitol Hill. You were listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More with data strategist, analytics leader, and co-founder of District Analyst, Germar Reed. Listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I hope that woke you up. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte. I'm really delighted to be in conversation with data strategist, analytics leader, and co-founder of District Analyst, Germar Reed. He is our resident data justice contributor, and we're always made a little bit smarter when he joins us. Germar, right before the break, I was asking you about how to sort of a thread between a number of these stories that we've talked about, the Flock Security organization and their renegotiation of a contract with LAPD. We talked about France just passing this first in Europe ban on social media for kids under 15. And you have Senator Ted Cruz, who chairs the Senate Commerce Committee, who is now signaling support for Marsha Blackburn, Senator Blackburn's AI kid safety package, but doesn't look like it has unified Republican support. And so, what I wanted to learn from you is, when you consider all of these activities that are afoot, talk to us about what this says about data governance. Who owns our data? Who can access it? Who profits from it? When it's Flock's plate reader data, it's a French teenager's Instagram data, it's a kid's chat bot logs.
Yeah. So, Doc, I think, in this case here, just stringing this all together, the important thing to understand, this is showing what it looks like when France is showing what it looks like for governments to actually step up and attempt to protect its citizens from predatory algorithms, and then also it shows what it looks like for for Washington to fight the culture wars over AI and around AI, and this is all happening while private tech companies and local governments are spying on the community, and with the ability to, in many cases, get away with it because, going back to the initial question, data governance, and I think that's going to be the missing piece that we have to catch up with regard to how we govern this data, and a lot of companies have done it because they are very careful about putting themselves in position to be sued. So many companies, many of the large companies are very careful about PII. I think you mentioned it earlier, that personal information that gets out there. What we have to do is make sure that our government is doing the same thing, and they are taking the steps to make sure that that we're actually governing and protecting the data. Europe led the way around this, and I'm trying to remember I can't remember the acronym, but many companies took the action of following what Europe was setting up with regard to protecting its citizens' data, and I think that's something that we're going to have to be serious about. And because this is moving so fast, this can't be something that gets held up in discussion with regard to the Senate or the House of Representatives and even the president, playing politics with it. We have to move at the speed of this. And it's a long-winded answer, but we have to move at the end of the day, we have to move at the speed of this technology to make sure that we're governing the data.
Well, speaking of governing data, the New Jersey governor sending shockwaves out there, Germar. I want to bring you into the story that has midterms written all over it. New Jersey's governor, Mickey Sherrill, revealed that roughly 6,600 people who indicated that they were non-citizens while getting driver's licenses were nonetheless registered to vote in 2023 and 2024 because of a motor vehicle commission software glitch. But in this matters, fewer than 400 of those actually cast ballots. And so, let's scale this honestly. 6,600 out of more than 6.6 million registered voters in New Jersey is less than 0.1% of the total. This is a data hygiene failure, but not evidence of fraud or conspiracy. Do you see something I don't see, Germar?
No, I'm with you. It's a micro, percentage of the voting population, but as we've seen in the past, it only takes a little bit in order for this to turn into a PR nightmare for those that are looking to instill confidence in the vote. and that's all it takes. And something like this would eat up most of the airspace, because we would be talking about the 6,000 folks that were registered to vote due to a filtering error. But that's all it takes, as you know.
Now, just for political context, this comes as President Trump and Republicans continue asserting that non-citizen voting is rampant. That's what they keep saying. The president gave that address last week that was all over the place. It sounded desperate in my view. It sounded like he was wearing himself out, peddling through all the conspiracy theories, but he said what he said. And the president Republicans, they continue to assert that non-citizen voting is rampant, even though factually it's rare. And when caught, can be punished as a felony that can lead to deportation. And so the deterrent already exists. And so, is this story a bit of a nothing burger right here? I mean, okay, 6,600 people got the ability to vote. 400 actually voted, less than 0.1%. This does not rise to the standard of overhauling U.S. elections, does it?
Absolutely not. Like you said, it is a nothing burger, but the problem is, again, that it's a PR issue, because this just continues to feed the story that our vote is not secure, and that's all it's needed. It's these small glitches in the system, allowing like you said, a micro percentage to move through due to filtering errors. They cause the issue of adding to the story that's been repeated over and over again, creating that doubt in our political voting system.
Mm. And this is exactly the voting law changes that we mentioned earlier, that sort of tucked into this war supplemental, this manufactured urgency around non-citizen voting becoming the justification of new ID and proof of citizenship laws that we know disproportionately burden Black, brown folks, elderly folks, low-income folks who are less likely to have already to have access to specific documents required. I think I read something somewhere that said that over 50% of Americans don't have a passport, something like that. So let's pair that with retired Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster, not exactly a resistance figure, right? A former Trump national security advisor who said plainly, quotes, what happens too often, whether it's the president or whether it's certain members of Congress, when they raise doubts about elections, they're actually doing the bidding of our adversaries.
Absolutely, Dr. Nee. And I mean, this is, and again, and the point you made, this typically targets Black and brown folks. It targets the folks that have a difficult time voting in the first place. And if we, as a country, we claim ourselves to be a democracy. A democracy is a place in which each of the citizens have the ability they're not inhibited from voting. And so there's all of this screaming and shouting about us not, of patriotism, but there's a push to do away with, the ability for folks to vote for and access the voting, the ballot box. Mm-hmm. So it's either one or the other,
Well, Germar, moving on to another headline that certainly caught my attention. ICE shared Medicaid data with Palantir that it wasn't legally supposed to have. And so, there are so many different angles here as to why this matters beyond the immigration angle. But let me start with this. After Medicaid officials improperly shared data about millions of people in January with immigration officials, ICE then shared that data with the data analytics firm Palantir, which operates an app called Elite that ICE agents use to show the addresses of non-citizens who may be subject to deportation. the company told NPR that the data set in question had been purged, including the company's response, and that was included in the company's response to allegations around fairness and accuracy. You know, is this more prevalent than we think? I mean, today it's Palantir, tomorrow it may be Flock. Is this more common than we think? Is our data um, more up for grabs than people know?
Yeah, I would say that I would say yes. I think this is a continuation of, hey, the technology is moving faster than data governance. We're in such a hurry to do things faster. And I'll call out also to do things with less people. So that you have, you may have one person doing the job of 3 to 4 people now that they have access to AI. So people are being expected to continue to do their job and then the added 2 jobs that they were doing before because of access to the tools. And it's exposing data that should not be exposed because we're not also adding in data governance. And I think this is just, I mean, and again, and on top of this, this goes to the lack of, this will feed the lack of trust in our government having access to our information and being able to safely share that with private companies in order to help the government, as they say. But this will cause more distrust. Like these stories, I think these stories will continue because I think there's a rush to implement this new technology, but not stand up the data governance needed to make sure that we're protecting the information.
Is part of what we're witnessing a failure of the judiciary? I mean, a federal judge had already ruled certain Medicaid data details, home addresses, dates of birth, immigration statuses, couldn't be shared with ICE from states that sued, then paused that sharing in late May after officials admitted that CMS shared data beyond what was allowed. Uh, this is now the second known overshare, if you will. Um, what is repeated, oops, we shared more than we should have, data governance failures? What does that signal about not just the trust in these systems generally, but the trust in the judiciary to be able to call out uh, folks who are violating the law and hold them accountable?
Yeah, I think it's a failure there with the judiciary. I think it's a failure with the executive branch because again, like in the earlier story, we've seen that the executive branch is willing to bypass the law or bypass the rules that have not been made into laws, and to apologize after they've bypassed it and got and gained access to the information that they wanted. This is something we're definitely going to have to harden the laws and the rules around how our data is stored and shared between federal, state, and local government. And that's the end of it. I think it's going to continue to happen until there is a true punishment for this information being shared improperly. And I think so the judiciary is going to have to step up.
When we come forward, we want to talk about something else in your wheelhouse, straight up pricing data. The Guardian just published a deep investigation piece on Amazon showing internal emails and court documents revealing how Amazon pressured suppliers into raising prices on rival sites like Walmart, Best Buy, Target, and Home Depot. We're going to dig into this more when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Germar Reed, co-founder of District Analyst, when we come forward.